Welcome to the Business Life of Husband and Wife podcast,
a show based on real experiences in business and life.
Hey guys, welcome back. We are on episode number, three today? Season 2, episode 3. And we're doing a new format.
What's so exciting about today?
We're doing a new format.
We are.
So it's going to be awkward for both of us because I have to look at the camera the whole time and then look at you. So we're going to have to get used to that, I think.
We are going to have to get used to this. We're so used to just sitting either across from each other or next to one another. So we're going to have to get used to seeing each other virtually.
Yeah, it's going to be different for sure.
Yeah.
But so today, guys, we've got our new episode. So this is our launching of our new format. This is our 4th format of our show. So for those of you that don't know, we're going to go back in time a little bit, and we have had 3. We now officially have 4 formats of our show. So what we have is we have our couples episodes. We bring on couples and we talk about the ins and outs and all the bouts. And we kind of find out from them how they do things differently than maybe what we're doing. And hopefully we can all learn from them. 2, we bring our expert guests on, and our experts tell us about, in season 1, it was the 101s, the basics, accountants, lawyers, crypto experts, marketing, HR specialists. And in season 2, we're going to go down the rabbit hole even deeper and get into topic specific on those expert guests. And we've got a whole bunch of people lined up for you this year that we're actually super excited about bringing on. Then we have our Q&A episodes, which you can find us at the top right-hand corner of our website, businesslifeofhusbandandwife.ca. And now
we are launching something called the Foundation Hour. So what Clint and I wanted to do is bring in a format that are the foundation to our business, our life, that type of thing. And we just want to discuss and elaborate all these different rules that we live by. So this format is going to have 8 episodes this year. And what we're going to do is we're going to take each of those rules that we live by, that we grow our businesses by, that we communicate by, and we're going to break those down for everyone, just so we can all learn from it. And you guys, we are very open to some feedback on this format, as this is something that's new for us. And so today is that first episode of the Foundation Hour. So Clint, where are we starting for our first one? I think this is our favorite rule, so we had to start there.
Yeah, so this is has been one of our mainstay kind of like, it's not even really a rule per se, but we call it the 10% rule. But it's more of just something that we do innately that we've kind of learned that mathematically makes sense for us.
Yes.
That's the big thing. It's mathematically the 10% rule in business and in life for us makes a ton of sense. And we're going to dive into those different like mathematical, and you guys are going to see stuff pop up on the screen. For those of you that listen to straight audio, you won't see these, but for those of you that are listening today or watching today, actually, because this is YouTube now, which we're not used to at all, right? Still trying to figure that out.
But here we go.
If you're watching on YouTube, you'll be able to see, and we're going to have pop-ups. We also, for those on audio, we are going to add anything that we start to talk about that has a pop-up, we're going to put in a value added section for you. That's the top right-hand corner of our website. You can go on there, businesslifeofhusbandandwife.ca. It says value added. There's a whole bunch of free info in there for you. So as you're listening to this episode, you might want to jump on there and kind of go back if you're doing any kind of interactive listening as you're kind of going through things. So basically, let's give the definition. We're kind of just going to start. We're going to give you guys the definition of the 10% rule, and then we're going to go through how we use it for
our interpretation of that 10% rule, because the 10% rule is traditionally like, it's a 10% money rule. It's the simple idea that people leverage 10% of everything that they earn, or they use that 10% to put into savings. So that is the very basic definition of this rule. However, we have taken that 10% rule and definitely put the business life spin on it. So yeah, Clint will break down all the math and everything for you. The 10%, it really helps you put away things and earn towards different financial goals. For instance, towards an emergency fund, for savings for retirement, for like something that we like to call in Two Birds as our OOPS fund. These are all things that will just help with the stability and the success of your business.
Exactly. So let's just go back to the definition again. So the definition of the 10% money rule. So from a financial perspective, it's not really actually like a rule, like I said, but it's the idea that you leverage every dollar that you save 10%. So mathematically speaking, if you have $1, you take 10 cents and you move that over into another account. And that is your OOPS fund that we like to call. You use that money in case of emergencies. We went through that emergency in 2020 where people were scrambling and they weren't prepared for when things go wrong. And I'm not talking about you use that 10% to pay your taxes as a corporation. You're using that to pay your 5% GST. That's not what it's for. It is for, oh, fuck. That's what it's for. It's for those moments.
Yeah.
Right. That's what it's for. It's not for you to touch. It's not for you to use. It's not for you to reinvest. It's not for that until you hit a certain threshold that you're happy with. So you have to set that goal in mind with that 10% rule. So mathematically, let's just do it basic numbers. Let's say you're doing 7 figures, $1 million, really easy math. Over a year, that's $100,000 in your account. If that's your goal and that gives you enough to have a 3-month window, because that's the big thing, right? 3-month runway. We always talk in runways. When you're talking in finance, you're talking in money, you're talking in business, you always want to have a runway or an outlay for how long you can operate with no money coming in. Right? Same thing in personal. We do the same thing. You have to have that runway. Like, how long can you live if you get fired? Or if your business goes bankrupt, how much money do you have just ready to go that you can pay those bills for? And that gives you time to get your shit together and come back around. So basically the 10% rule is as simple as that. It's 10% of every cent you make, or every dollar, sorry, I should say every dollar you make goes into another fund. Mm-hmm. So there'll be different nuances to it, right? You can use it if you need to, but what happens is once you take that 10% out, and there'll be an infographic, I think, coming up pretty quick here, you basically have 90% left to do your budgeting and figure out what kind of money you have available.
Yeah. So that 90% becomes your 100% operating, essentially. That's exactly
it. Right. So that's a layman's terms of putting it for you guys. It's very simplistic. That's what Robin and I have done for the last, I would say, 5 years. 5
I was
years.
Say decade.
Feels like it, but I think we started it about 5 years ago because we just went through a little situation where we had to use that money a little bit just due to some circumstances that there was an oh fuck moment we had.
Yeah, let's call it a growing pain. It was a growth.
Right? But that did happen. And we didn't actually have to use that money, but it was there. So it took the pressure off of us knowing that if we didn't make the money we think we were making for that quarter, we can always pull from that to cover it. And we still had enough runway to continue. We didn't have to use it, thankfully, but it's a mindset. It's a state of mind that you got that little comfort that you know that if you make a mistake, because you're going to make a mistake, or your people or your business, whatever's going to happen personally, you're going to have
shit always happens.
You're going to have a mistake that you need to have that for.
Yeah.
So that's the basics of the 10% rule in financial terms.
Yes.
Right. It's the idea of saving money for unforeseen circumstances. So like we said, now you can go in and be like, okay, now I have 90% of what I make. So 90% is what I use for payroll, budgeting, purchasing equipment, paying rent, or my building loan, or, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
Purchasing
R&D.
Yeah. And you don't have to use that because potentially you'll have a line of credit you use to buy your inventory, all that kind of stuff. So there's a whole bunch of nuance to it. But for money in, 10% needs to go somewhere else that you can't touch unless you absolutely have to. And then you have to have the discipline not to touch it.
Or one of you needs to have the discipline, and that person in this situation would be me. I am very regimented in something like this. So I actually have a setting in my calendar that reminds me every morning that I do that 10% transfer absolutely every single day. And then you never even see it. It's just in that other account, and you just continue on with regular business.
So that's one of the things that Robin does very well is, and we've worked on really hard, is scheduling that in, because you can easily forget, right?
Yes.
And what do you do? So it's as simple as taking your reconciled transaction at the end of the day.
Yeah, it's a very simple calculation. So like most businesses, we have a few different streams of income, whether that's like an e-transfer from a client, whether that's a deposit from Shopify, whether that's a deposit from like specific Moneris. So what we do is a simple calculation every morning of all of those different streams of income that came in from the previous business day. And then we do that simple 10% calculation. Once the funds have hit that standard operating or checking account, and then we do transfer it over to a completely separate, the OOPS account.
And so we set that account up separately. So that's
Correct.
something you guys are going to see pop up eventually here too on the infographics that we'll have on the YouTube, and you guys can find it for audio listeners again on our value added. There's the 3 different little steps you need to implement this rule.
Yeah, it's very simple. We break it down into 3 easy rules of utilizing the 10% rule in regards to the finance section. Number 1 is we recommend opening a completely separate bank account from your checking or your standard operating account. Number 2, the most important one, is to set up a reminder to transfer that 10% of all of your daily streams and reconciliations down to the penny from the operations account to that other specific like special setup account. And then number 3 is that we have that 90% of your income now becomes 100% of your budgeted funds for the month, the quarter, the year, and for all of your cash flow planning.
Yeah. And so you guys saw that pop up on the screen there. You guys can jump on and have a look. Those are just, and again, that goes back to our rule of 3s. We try to break it down into 3 simple steps. Yes. Open an account, set up a schedule to transfer the money, and work off the 90%.
Yeah.
That's the basics from a financial business perspective. Now we do that personally as well too. So that could be, hey, I need to save for a house. I need to do this. I need to do that. But again, we're not talking about that. We're literally talking about when you have a moment in your life where something really goes south, do you have a runway which you can live off of? I like 3 months. Robin probably likes a little bit more than that.
Yeah, I'm a touch more conservative. I like 6 months. So I like double Clint's.
Right. But I'm of the old school thought a little bit that if you give yourself 30 days to clean your fucking house, you're going to take 30 days to do it. So if I kind of crunch myself and put a little bit more pressure on myself that way, then it's like, I have to do this. There's no, oh, I can do it tomorrow. And that's how I keep myself a little bit more disciplined versus like, I can take a break today. I can't. Yes. And that's just reality. I want to make sure I've got that little bit of pressure on myself. So I do it differently. Robin's more conservative that way.
I'm more conservative that way, but I'm also much better at lighting a fire under my own ass. Yeah. So I don't need that financial pressure. I put enough pressure on myself that it aligns us timeline wise for sure.
Well, and some of us can't do it that way. We know that.
Yeah, that's fair.
So some of you listeners are like, you're a fucking psycho. Like, I can't handle that pressure. It would stress me out. That's why you have to figure out how much you need. And that 10%, now we're talking compounding interest.
Yes.
That's what this means. So the consistency and the discipline to constantly move that money over, that's going to allow you a little more time to not be so stressed, right? So simple math. Let's just say you're making $100,000 a year. That's 10 grand a year that you're just sticking into a fund that you can't use. No travel fund, no fun fund, no investment fund. That is just in case until you hit that level. Okay, I'm making 100,000 a year, so I need to have that. And if you're fully extended on that 100,000, you need to have that built up. So let's say it's $8,000 a month, give or take. You need to have about that coming in for those 6 months. Mm-hmm. So do the math. You need 50 grand. right? So that's the very basics of it, right? So if you can put away, that's 5 months, or I mean, 5 years, that takes you 5 years. So that's consistency. So you can't be worried about, and it's because we're so inundated with now. What about your long-term outlook? Right? That 50 grand, once you've got that aside, that's only 5 years. A lot can change in 5 years. So now you've got that put away. That is where that's your fund. Now, when you're doing this 10% rule, it just starts to compound on what you're doing. It's about consistency. Now, in business, that's a lot more than personally, right? But that's just your oops fund, your holy crap fund. That doesn't include your RSPs, your savings, your retirement, anything you're probably doing. But if you can figure out how to live, and this is about living a little bit below your means and learning how to do that. So you're literally taking 10% of your lifestyle, and you got to cut it back in order to do this if you're already at the top.
Yes. And it's also having the mindset that 10% that you're setting aside is going to benefit you massively in the future. Like, it's just that little bit of the sacrifice in the now, because I find that we live in such a society where we want everything now, and it's just such an immediate gratification. Whereas if we create this discipline to simply transfer those funds, is that a decade down the road, you're going to have a massive amount of funds that you have at your disposal, right?
Yeah. And then, like I said, once you hit that comfort threshold, anything above that, we call that gravy money, Robin and I, or I do anyway.
Yeah.
Well, it is. It's just now I can go and buy shit in cash. You know what I mean? Like, we went back to we're doing $1 million in sales. Let's just say the easy math, that's 100,000 a year. Okay. That's, we kind of got it figured. We got 100,000 put away in the bank. Maybe we do that for 2 or 3 years. That's sitting there. That's what we needed or wanted, whatever that number might be. Anything above that 100,000, let's say, okay, now I can use that for capital acquisitions, for deposits, for downs. Now I can start using that for, oh, hey, guess what? We want to start producing content and building out our own personal brands, or filming our production, and actually start doing that a little bit higher quality, higher level. Well, guess what? I've got that extra money coming, and I can bank that for 6 months, and then I can use that money.
Yeah. Yeah. It just really opens a lot of avenues for growth, just with that immediate, I'm not going to say sacrifice, but just that immediate discipline with those funds.
Well, and that's something that we were going to talk about here. So, is delayed gratification.
Yes.
So, like I said, we're constantly inundated with, you need this, you got to buy that, keeping up with the Joneses. Oh, look at their house. Look at this, look at that. That doesn't actually matter.
No.
When you're trying to build something, right? In the short term, it might seem like, oh, I need that. No, you don't.
No, because what's the rule? Like, once you get a new vehicle, how long does it take for the novelty to wear off? I think it's about a week, maybe 3 weeks max.
Yeah, as soon as your vehicle gets dirty, it's just like lived in again, right? Like, as soon as it's got that new car smell, it's gone.
The novelty wears off. So I think if we just create that, you just need that discipline.
Well, and that comes down to being willing to have that delayed gratification.
Yes.
And like, that's in anything that we're doing, is if you can delay that so-called need to be gratified or fulfilled personally by being disciplined in your own actions. And this is a simple one. Like 10%, no big deal. How do I cut that out? I make coffee at home. You know what I mean? Like, I don't spend the $8 on a frappe or whatever the hell it is at Starbucks.
When have you ever spent $8 on
But I don't. That's not my style. You know that. But like, you think about it, and it was funny. I was thinking about it the other day, because we actually went and bought lunch. Cost us $40. So you think about that, you can make lifestyle changes to delay that gratification, just meal prep. So we meal prep like crazy, but
yeah,
$40.
But the thing is, it just takes that little bit of planning. Yeah.
But if you think it's $20 a day you're spending, or $40 a day on stuff you don't need, that's probably 10% right there for a lot of us. Quite easily, right? So there's just things like that you can start to think about if you're already out or max capacity on what you're making. in your budgeting. And then you can bring that into that 90 and it all kind of fits in. And then you can every couple of days, if you're a Starbucks lover or you're whatever, go get it.
Yeah.
There's nothing
Yeah,
saying you
use
can't.
that as a reward rather than just like part of your everyday life. Use that as a reward system instead. Yeah.
Yeah. And you're delaying your gratification that week.
Yeah. And it makes the frappe taste so much better.
Yeah. So that's something that's super important for us to understand. Like, the rule is very simple. The execution is where things always get more convoluted and complicated.
Well, and that's always the most difficult part, right? Is taking.
Well, it's easy for me and you to sit here and talk to you guys and just say, hey, this is how it is. It's not like that every day.
No.
Like, you have to, there's days where you're just like, no, this sucks. I need this because I feel like this. But what did we say a few, like, very beginning of the episodes? This has been episode 4 or 5 in season 1. Fuck your feelings.
Yeah.
That's the truth. Like, we get emotional or something about something that's happening, and then we have this need to fulfill with stuff or something, instead of just that discipline of, we don't actually need this today, and that self-talk of bringing yourself back in. So that's something that we can all work on, and it's a process. It sucks. I'm still working on it today. It's not a whole lot of fun some days. Yeah. But that's reality.
It is reality.
That's on the financial,
like a little discipline.
No. And that's on the financial aspect. Like, we're just talking financial and on business, and on a bit of the personal side, you can do it as well. If you have the means to, if you can, you probably should, because we talked about it the last episode, I believe, or would have been episode 51 of our first season. We chatted about it. The market's changing, right? You're seeing a lot of layoffs, so we're seeing a lot of things happening out there that could affect all of us economically. And there's just some things happening that we're all seeing and we're all feeling, that there's a weird kind of like almost lull zone that we're in right now. And if we can create these habits and these discipline and everything that we're doing to even just do this simple thing, it might take the stress and the pressure off of all of us. Just that slight. It's not huge. Like 10%.
No, and really, what's the best way to weather for lack of better words, what's the best way to weather a shitstorm? Is being prepared. Like, and that's what this 10% is about, is being prepared for the unknown. Like Clint mentioned, we experienced that worldwide at the beginning of 2020, where something happened that none of us were expecting. But it's nice to be prepared for when shit like that happens, because then you're still able to focus and navigate through it all without having that stress of that financial burden overshadowing absolutely everything else.
The key to making a beautiful feature wall like this is sourcing the proper material that just happened to be delivered to the site by the installer, who brought it from a shop in Okotoks, where a crew was planing and milling material that's used for all kinds of things like barn doors, faux beams, and all sorts of custom furniture. Of course, it isn't that easy, because before milling the lumber, the nails are removed from the boards, but not before hauling the boards from another yard, which can kind of be fun to get to. The material is stacked and well organized, because retrieving the material means going out and gathering each board, piece by piece. But the real secret is finding a barn that is no longer functioning for its intended use. The 100-year-old boards from this barn will be on display in this new home for the next 100 years. We're Two Birds Furniture, and this is what we do.
There's something I just wanted to touch on quick that you guys can go back. So we've done the Enneagram test right after this episode. It airs Friday, but so by the time you guys are listening to this, we'll have had our final meeting with our Enneagram coach, with Evan, with the Unpacked Pod. So you guys can jump back on. I can't remember what episode. I'll have to find it, but you can find the Unpacked Pod episode on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and you can look with Evan and Tara. Geez, I'm bad for this. Bad for names. Can't remember that stuff. I'm sorry guys. Sorry, guys. With the Enneagram, there's a type that this would work really well for, because they're over-prepared people.
Yes.
and they're the sixes.
And when Jenny listens to this.
This is for Jenny. So for those of you that listen to the show, you know, Jenny's our hardworking behind the scenes admin. She does a lot of stuff for us. So the sixes are defined by their desire for safety and security. So this is one of them simple ones where you have that little safety net and that security net.
Yeah.
Very simple. So I just want to touch on that because that's some topic that we're kind of still working through.
We're curious about. And that episode, for anyone just wanting to jump right there, is actually episode 32 from season 1.
So, and that'll help you guys too make and understanding your decision making as well. You can go back and learn what type of personality or what kind of ego do I have that the reason I make these decisions is kind of based on a lot of these factors. So that'll allow you guys to be like, okay, well, maybe I jumped the gun a little bit on things and I need to think about it from this perspective. And this is where I can utilize this rule or tool, the 10% rule or tool, whatever you want to call it, to set myself up a little bit more for the future, for now, whatever it might be, and building that habit. So that touches on the finance side of the 10% tool or rule. Now, Robin and I are
the business life spin on this.
Yeah, we have our own spin on it. So one of our big things this year is working on time. Time is like our most valuable asset. You've heard it a million times. It's something it's not infinite, right? You have a finite amount of time. That is just the reality of the world of life. How do we utilize our time more effectively? How do we break down the math, right? So that is where we want to put our spin on this. Is we're going to use this, and we are using this currently, and we've started really thinking about it a lot more and talking about it a lot more, is how do we do this from a time management perspective?
Yes.
So Robin?
Yes.
What are some things that we're working on that you can tell everybody right now?
Okay, so I don't know if most of the listeners or new listeners, viewers, that type of thing. Clint and I, we do have a rather long commute every day to our office, which at the beginning of when we started our business here, 45 minutes away from where we live, sometimes it can become a burden. Especially in the winter when the roads are bad, it's dark, all that kind of jazz. What we have switched this mindset as, and what we do unintentionally throughout the years, is we actually actively use this 45 minutes in each direction to communicate either about our days, about how we're feeling, about like anything, either business related, personal related, like life plan related. So we are intentionally actually taking 10% of our waking hours and communicating about all the important things that are going on. And it gives us a really good starting point for both the beginning of the day and at the end of the day. We're very fortunate about this commute because we have 5% of our day together, forced in a vehicle. And then we also have 5% of our day at the end of the day together to kind of go through like things that we want to work on, things that we fucked up on that day, things we need support in, things that we rocked that day. So it's nice to have that intentional 10% set aside, that we can just focus on ourselves and focus on our growth and focus on where we're going, and not have any distractions.
And we use that almost like we didn't even realize we were doing it until we talked about it. It was hilarious. We're sitting there and we're talking, we're like, wait a minute. And you start doing math, and math is like the key to all of this because it's based on 24 hours in a day. Well, 10% of 24 hours is like 2.4 hours. So 2 hours, 20 minutes, 22 minutes, give or take, or 18 minutes, whatever you want to call it. But then you have 8 hours of sleep that you pretty much have built in. So now you have a 16-hour day. Okay. So it's basically 1.5 hours a day. That's 10% of your waking hours to do something that we like to always use the move the needle because it seems to resonate with us from Ed Milet. To do that, to move the needle in our conversations, in our communication. Yeah. Because if we're not communicating clearly, we're not able to execute clearly on the visions we both have for the week, the day, the month, the year, whatever's happening. So as couple, that's working together and living together and doing all the things that we do together, and we're always together, basically, we need to make that time and have intentional communication.
Mm-hmm.
It's not easy to do that every day.
No.
It's hard. You bring in a whole lot of factors, but if you think you've got an 8-hour workday, and then you're in your commutes, and then you got kids and you're picking things up and you're taking them to places, when do you find that time? Because you want to do the gym, or you want to do meal prep, or you're cook, or whatever it is. But if you can break that down even lower, if you have to, but try and find 10% of your day to do some time management planning or communication planning is what we're talking about. So we're using it in 2 different ways now. 1, we're using it for intentional communication. And then 2, we're trying to find 10% of our day and figuring out how to schedule our time, right? So we're looking at time as, okay, well, now I'm recording an episode right now, and this takes about an hour, hour and a half. How do we mitigate that down to just strictly an hour? So you guys get this foundation hour. It's 1 hour, and then we move on. Same for meetings. We all schedule meetings for an hour. They're blocked off for 2, but half the time you're sitting there talking about nothing for 20 minutes.
Yeah.
So how do you get that, in an hour, how do you get that extra 6 minutes back? And you start to claw those back. That extra 6 minutes builds up over a 16-hour period.
Yeah, it builds up really fast.
Right? So that's how you have to think about it. Even over a 10-hour period, that's a full hour that you can get back by just grabbing 10%. So over a 10-hour period, if you can schedule in 1 hour in that 10-hour period to do something that moves your business forward, and whether not answering emails, none of this stuff, but actually working on growing yourself personally or your business, that is where you're working into this 10% rule that Rob and I are doing a twist on it.
Yeah.
Yes,
that 10% that makes a difference, right? Especially when it's that consistency, like you had mentioned with the financial aspects of this rule. You're also then stacking all of these either like habits that you're creating or the planning that you're doing, all of that type of thing. And it over time that just you're adding so much value without even realizing it, because it's only 10% of your day.
100%. And that's something that we are really working on this year, because time is a big one. The more things that we add to our plate or want to try or attempt to do in this life, in this finite amount of time that we have here, the more we have to be able to compress that time and utilize it more efficiently. And 10% is not a lot.
No,
it's just a shift in your brain and how you think about your time. And that's all it comes down to, is if you can figure that out. And like Rob said, it's compounding. It's no different with your finances, compounding interest. Like there's all these platforms out there that you can show you what happens when you put amount of money in and over a 30-year time horizon, what happens. And most of us,
growth is going to happen.
There's a lot that, like, you think about what happens in a decade. Like Rob and I have been doing this for a decade now. There's a lot of things that have happened and that have changed in a decade. And now what can we do in the next decade by compressing that time, understanding ourselves better in those time horizons to push ourselves that much further?
Exactly.
Which is a wild concept when you start transferring that into your brain and pushing yourself to utilize that time a little more effectively. And for me, it's more about like personal growth in business for now, for this year, for the 10%. For you guys, it can be whatever you want to use that for, whether it's, hey, for this 10%, I want to, and the rule is 20 hours of time. And this is from Alex Ramosi. You can learn any new skill. So if you want to learn a new skill, how do you find 20 hours to actually learn a new skill that you can be fairly decent at? It only takes 20 hours of actual, really thorough research work, whether it's playing guitar, whether it's learning how to use the Zoom call setups and get backgrounds for me, whether, you know what I mean, learning how to use our audio software, taking that. How do you find that? Well, you can do it in less than a month. If you take 10% of your day, right? If you're doing a 10-hour day on average, let's just say you take 1 hour and you physically work on that key concept that you're working on. Well, 20 days later.
Exactly.
That's just a regular work week for most people. You do it in 5-day segments. You're not even utilizing the whole 30. So in 20 days, you can take those 20 hours and you can learn a new skill. Now you just added 12 new skills to your coffer.
Right. It's wild once you break it down like that.
And that's how you break it down.
Mhm.
And that's how you have to start thinking about, how do I break that down? And then when you start looking at your scheduling and how you're doing that, you can find that time. We have way more time than we think we do. It's
Yes.
bizarre. We always think, oh, we don't have enough time or whatever. But Rob and I were having that conversation literally last night. So this was Tuesday night. We're recording Wednesday. Tuesday night, we were actually talking to my folks, my parents, about at night, you get home and most people put their 2 hours, 3 hours watching Netflix, hanging out. So if we take that and you only take 10% of that away, how much is that? Not very much. But you can actually break that down into a week. So now I'm spending 15 hours just like hanging out doing nothing. So now I can grab an hour and a half of that and do that. I've added 6 hours to my productivity that I wouldn't have had otherwise. You can make that bigger too. Like 10% is just, it's a minimal sacrifice.
Well, and it's a realistic and it's not too scary of an achievement, right? Like just taking 10% of your day. Like, for example, one of my goals is I want to like physically read every single day. So me just taking 10%, it's not feeling like it's unachievable. So it's not scary enough to even like, I'm still going to tackle it because I'm not impacted by the thought of this, like forcing myself to read for hours and hours per day, right? It's only 10%.
And that just about switching your mind and
Exactly.
understanding your time, right? And it's not always going to work perfect for you. So you can utilize that differently. Like you don't have to do 10% every day. It could be 10% a week. So I'm putting in 60 hours this week. How do I get that 6 hours and utilize that and compress that 6 hours that I want to learn this new skill so that I can utilize that to move my business forward, to do whatever I might need to do.
Yeah.
Same on a personal side. How do I find that 6 hours a week to go to the gym, to whatever it might be that your goal is? It goes all the way through. Or how do I find that 6 hours a week to have a conversation and just like reboot with my other half, with my spouse, my wife, you know, my partner, whatever it might be, to sit there and just be like, we need to talk about this today and discuss and have this. So Robin and I innately didn't even know we were doing it because we have this, we just do it. And it actually is 10% of every day.
Yes.
That's just something that we didn't even know we were doing, but now we are aware of it, and awareness kind of wakes you up to the reality of how much actual time we waste. So for us, this is a big one for us moving forward. And this year, we hope that you guys start to maybe think about it, maybe not utilize it, but you can start thinking about it and bring some awareness to the idea of time management in a different.
And let us know how you choose to apply it to your life. Like leave us some comments and stuff. Just we'd like to start a conversation about this 10% idea of the impact on your life and also on the businesses. We'd really like to share that experience with everyone.
Yeah, because like we can share a few stories here about what we've done, like what we just did, like us using our commute, learning about it, us using the 10% financial rule for our business. Well, that saved our bacon during 2020, 2021. We didn't need to go and get funding from the government because we had a good little egg in there that we could utilize to, one, keep our staff going, keep our guys paid, keep our rent paid, whatever it was. We had that ability and we had that runway if there was no money coming in. And it was for a while for a lot of us, right? There was a good 6-8 month period of up and down, not knowing what was happening. Well, we had that little bit of a safety net. So that's one of our stories, is like that saved our ass, period.
Yeah. Well, it took the stress off so we could focus and reevaluate and see how the business, I know we all hate this word now, but how we had to pivot and how we had to adjust to the new times that came without warning.
And so that's what we want everybody to kind of comment on. Just let us know. Like we won't share it. We'll just chat with you guys back and forth, see what things that we could learn from you and you can learn from us. And we'll kind of go back and forth on different strategies that we're implementing. And then maybe you guys are even implementing on a different avenue. So we're only using this right now in our time management, our communication, and in our finances. So that's just 3 things that we're doing. But when you think about it from a business standpoint, you can do it for R&D, right? Set up 10% of your week for your team and you'd have to go through and start building some new product that you can launch that keeps people's interest, right? You can do something like that, because a lot of us know that the interest for things like over time starts to wane, just like we talked about with the car. You get that new shiny toy and after a while it goes away. So reinventing yourself, reinventing your product, new things you're up to, or, you know, bringing old products back, whatever you're doing for R&D and tweaking what you're doing. Marketing. Are you putting enough time to, you know, promote yourself, create video, talk about your business, advertising, all that stuff? How do you break that all down into 10% segments? And that comes down to your time management, going back and forth with your schedule. And it doesn't all have to happen at once. You got to pick one or two, find how that can benefit you and what you are lacking. Use that 10% for that compounding growth. That's basically what we're talking about with this rule, is how do you use 10% compounding, whether it's every day, every week you're using it, whatever it might be. How do you do that?
Yeah.
And that is the basis of the foundation.
Yeah, I think that's the foundation hour right there. There's the 10% rule. So thank you so much, everyone, for listening, and for those of you watching. Like, share, subscribe, all of this. You guys can find us at businesslifeofhusbandandwife.ca, and also Business Life of Husband and Wife on Instagram, and then also the Biz Life Couple on Twitter. And like we mentioned before, please share your comments, share your experience and absolutely everything with us, whether it's through Instagram or through YouTube. And let's start a conversation about it.
Okay. Thanks, guys. Appreciate
Thanks, everyone.
everybody listening. Thanks for listening, everybody. As always, like, share, and subscribe to help us grow the show.